Today I wanted to tell you guys the truth of what it's actually like to own an investment property and be a landlord. Because I know there's a lot of you out there that are saving to buy an investment property, that are kind of looking to get into the real estate market and become a landlord. But from what I've seen, there's not much detail out there of what it's really like to own an investment property. And to get straight into it, I guess the best way to explain it from my own experience of owning investment property for the past couple of years is it's very similar to kind of like having a ticking time bomb in your back pocket, not knowing when that thing is going to go off and explode. I mean, it sounds a little bit dramatic, but that's kind of what it's like, because every time I get a call from my property manager or every time I get an email from them, it's kind of like the first reaction is like panic, because you don't know how much the call is going to cost you, because there's always a maintenance item that comes up, whether it be big or small. This is the reality of owning an investment property. Now, as scary as I just made that sound, it's just as rewarding, if not even more so, because the benefits of owning real estate, I mean, the list is just endless. So for a lot of you guys out there that really want to get into real estate, the key point of this video is to understand and know that it's not gonna be an easy thing to be buying into. It's not like any other investment class out there. It's not like buying shares or crypto or gold or anything like that. It's very unique in the fact that it can be very hands-on depending on where you buy. Now, to mitigate some of these risks and avoid buying an absolute lemon that's just going to cost you a ridiculous amount of money, you want to make sure that you do the right amount of research before you buy the property, right? You don't want to buy in the city that you know just because you know the city. You want to look at all of your options, right? Like, for example, a lot of you guys that watch the video live in Sydney. Buying in Sydney may not be the best thing to be doing. You could be expanding and looking at places like Brisbane or Melbourne or anywhere you live in the world, in any country that you live. Look at other capital cities or other cities in your country and see what the market is doing in that area. And one of the other recommendations I have for you guys that, you might be very hesitant to purchase a property, you might be very tentative and almost scared to do so. I definitely was. I mean, I knew I wanted to buy into property for the longest time, but just taking that extra step and, taking a leap of faith almost, I went and used a buyer's agent that helped educate me to buy the property, which was probably the most value I got out of the buyer's agent at that time, but then also allowed me to buy the right property in the right area and showed me all of the due diligence I needed to do before buying it, so I didn't buy a property that was an absolute lemon. Some of the things that come up that you just simply cannot avoid is the tenants. Now, tenants are people, as you and I both know. There's a lot of things that is always happening in our lives. So one of the biggest risks of buying a property is the fact that you have someone living inside your asset. And I mentioned this in previous videos. So because you've got someone living inside it, they make their own decisions and they can do whatever they really want at any point in time. So from my own experience, I've generally had a good run with tenants. In the early days, I actually had a tenant abandon the lease. And if you're like me, you're like, okay, well, they can't just abandon the lease. There's a contract. Now, this was here in Australia, and just because they have a contract, the worst thing that can happen to a tenant without you pursuing legal action is they go on a blacklist, which means if they go try to get another rental property, it's going to be very difficult for them to do that. Not impossible, but it's going to be very difficult for them to actually get a property in their name. And that's really the worst that can happen to a tenant that abandons your lease. Obviously, as a landlord, you can pursue legal action, but that's just going to cost you an insane amount of money, and it's probably not going to be worth it in the lost rent that kind of you lose from that scenario. So tenants are can be an absolute nightmare. And if you find a really good tenant, make sure you look after them in the sense that whenever there's maintenance items that come up, you're kind of fixing it on the spot, and you're not really, letting them live in a property that's kind of falling apart, because most likely a good tenant is going to move out and find a property that's more suited to them. buying and owning real estate is a very hands-on investment, and it can be extremely stressful at times. Now, before you actually buy the property is the most important phase of the real estate investment cycle, because to buy the right property, you need to know that you're looking in the right areas. You need to know exactly how to do the research. And this is one of the most important things that isn't readily available out there. What do you need to look at to ensure that you're buying the right property and to ensure you're buying in the right location, in the right street, and all of the other data that goes with that? Now, if you're not sure and you need assistance in doing this, head over to my website, smashthecycle.com, and book yourself a one-on-one coaching session with me, and I can talk you through all of the ins and outs of buying real estate and the things that you need to do before you purchase. It really is important that you know exactly what you're doing and you get the right information. That's all we have time for today's video. I appreciate you watching and stopping by the channel. As always, I'll be back next week, Thursday, 7 p.m. with a fresh video. Until then, thanks for watching. I'll catch you soon.